Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. For our equestrian friends, or for just about any of us that compete, how about a number plate sleeve? This is a great project to have in our repertoire. Bigger point of this video, for the newer folks, if you want to step into leathercraft, great project. We're going to take this one step at a time, and you're going to be surprised at what you're capable of doing. All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com, or check below. We've got links there, going to take you straight to the website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's step over to our pattern table, get started. We've got a simple pattern to follow, great beginner project. We've got a digital pic of this. We'll look at that shortly, but we're going to talk about what we're doing first. That'll help everything fall into place. So on our main body, we're going to cut two panels. We'll cut our face leather, cut a window in that, then we'll flop that and cut a solid piece. We'll connect those two together. There's our sleeve. Now, one good point. I love working with a poster board. Easy to work with. We can find it just about anywhere and it's cheap. But if we're going to make more than one of these, and I hope yours is so pretty that everybody around you wants you to make one for them, well then let's transfer that over to our pattern sheeting. It's a great pattern material, inexpensive, big pieces, but it's easy to mark, easy to cut, but very durable. This will last, but not long. All right, so over to our digital pic. Total length here, 10 inches long, 5.5 inches wide. We've got basically a rectangle, but I'm going to bring the ends out just a little bit. We're going to add tabs to those. That's going to be a nice touch. Now, over on our window, this is 5 by 3.5. That's going to accommodate most number plates. We're giving that just a little bit extra room. And right here, we'll drop in oblongs for our lace. We'll come back around to that. All right, we've got a feel for what we're doing. Let's go cut some leather. At Weaver, we've got so many beautiful leathers that would work with this project. It's hard to boil these down. Well, now, if we're going dressage, classic black, absolutely. We've got a number of leathers that will work there. We can even go all out with some patent leather. That would look sharp. We've got prints. We've got colors. So I boil this down to one leather. And we're going this route for a couple of reasons. First off, this is our matte chrome tanned water buffalo. It's a 5 to 6 ounce. So it's going to be a little easier to see what we're doing over the black. But secondly, I love the chocolate, and it's a very affordable piece of leather for us crafters. We can make all kinds of projects with this. Okay, so I'm going to roll this out. Let's start cutting. I tend to tie my patterns together because there's nothing more frustrating than losing a piece or part when you're ready to make a pattern. Now, marking leather. I typically go with our awl. This is our heavy duty awl. It's an absolute must-have in our shop. But on darker leathers, particularly black, almost impossible to mark. So here's the answer. That's our Weaver marking pen. It's going to mark our pattern, but it just rubs right off with a damp cloth. So let's start right here. I'm going to drop my pattern down in, and let's trace this inside and out. And there we are. Very easy to see. I'm going to trace a second without the window. And that is marked and very easy to see. Nice. Now, I love my long straight edge. But in all honesty, this is our safety cutting ruler. The one great thing about this is when we're pressing down on this, if our knife jumps the edge, it's not going to end in our finger. I've had that happen so many times. Now, new blade or sharp blade every time, because that's going to make the whole process easier. With a sharp blade, watch how easy this moves through my leather. There we go. We've got a good clean cut, no aggravation involved. So I'm going to cut out the outside of both pieces. And we've got those pieces cut. Very nice. These are going to fit together very well. Now, on our window, very difficult to cut an inside curve. We've got what's called a corner knife. This is all the difference in the world to our projects. Multiple sizes, so we can get our outside corners easily, but the biggest help here, inside corners. Now, with this outside edge, we wanted to cut just a little bit inside the mark. more accurate size. Well, right here, I want to use my knife and my cut just a little bit outside of our line. So let's take our 15 millimeter, do all 4 corners. Good, we've got that. Now, let's cut, there we go, just outside of our marked line there. But what I'd like to do is put my straight edge on the outside so I can see where to stop. But actually, I can see the end of that knife cut, my corner knife. So let's just cut between the two. And just clip that if we need to, but there we go. We've got good inside round corners. All right, let's step over to our pattern table. Let's tape these 2 pieces together at our groove line. Let's do 2 things before we start here. First off, let's clean off just that excess marking pen. Now on the corners, we're going to clip that off, doesn't matter. But let's get that off of our straight edges. Good, there we go. And secondly, we store leather in rolls. So if this is rolled up, it's going to be a little bit hard to get the tape on that to lay these together. Easy enough. Let's take this, roll this top grade in, not too hard, but let's just roll that in, press it a little bit, and there we go. Our leather's going to lay flat. Do the same thing here. And there we go. Now, on the face, we've got a wider band and a thinner band. This thinner band is going to be on the bottom. So we're going to sew this together just like that. Now, I've got 2 machines in my shop that would do it, but we're going to hand sew this to make a point for the new folks. We don't have to have an industrial sewing machine to sew leather and to make it look good. In fact, time-wise, it's going to take about 20 minutes at most. So, right here, we're going to take some of our double-sided tape, and I love this. Incredibly strong, oddly strong. I've absolutely come to rely on this. This is our 1/16 of an inch, because down here at the bottom, I don't want more adhesive down there that card won't slide down into or will stick there. So let's go with a thinner, and I'm going to put tape across one side, doesn't matter on this back piece, and then just here and here. This is only there long enough for us to get our chisel through that, then we can hand sew that. And really all I'm saying there is we can just save a little bit of tape here and there. Now, the trick to getting this off, let's take our thumbnail, put it almost to the end, and just scrape back. There we go. That releases the tape behind the adhesive. We've got that. Now, there's no up or down on our back panel, so let's just do our best to lay this in as clean as we can. Good, all told, we've actually got a pretty nice meet all the way around. Now, next up, let's go with our 25 millimeter round knife. So on our bottom, let's cut both corners there. Good, we've got that. Now that is a nice touch. If we don't have a corner knife, all we have to do is on a point, cut the point off, and then cut the 2 smaller points off. That actually makes a pretty good round corner. And up here, same thing. Okay, we've got that. Looks pretty good, very nice. So now, let's take our groover, and I'll explain what this does, but let's take this and our project over to our punch table, because I'm a little better at using this when I'm standing up. For the folks that are new, this is called a groover, and I use this on every project. The primary job of this is to cut, groove a line parallel to our edge. That's going to give us a guide for our sewing, but it also creates a groove. So our stitch is going to sink down in that. That reduces the risk of it snagging or grabbing. The second way to use this is simply as a decoration. It gives us a nice look on our edge. Now on our groover, this is adjustable. I'm going to set mine typically at 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to butt this guide arm against the edge of my leather, and I'm going to bring the tool up about 45 degrees. Now, we don't really have to add a lot of pressure here. The tool is going to do the job. Yeah, there we go. With a lot of leathers, when we cut through that top grain, we get a different color. So that's why, again, it makes a nice edge decoration. So let's go all the way around. And there we are. Not a hard tool to master. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's do the same thing on our window. And there we are. That looks pretty good. Yeah, I could have done a little better job going around that corner, but nobody's going to see that but us. All right, let's reset, drop in our oblongs and our chisel holes. We're going to use a chisel to pre-punch our holes. So when we actually sew this, very fast and very easy on our hands. Now, this is the 1/8 inch flat chisel. It's my favorite chisel. Going to look just like a machine stitch. Very easy to do. But here's a problem. So we're going to be going through 2 plies of 5 to 6. The problem isn't getting through. We've got the mallet to help us out there. The problem is getting that back out. That's a lot of steel moving through leather. So here's where I'm going with this. Let's back down to a 4 tine. We'll actually move a little bit faster, okay? So right here, there's our throat. So I'm going to start in my groove line, and I can actually feel my chisel sit down in that groove line. I'm going to start just on the inside of that curve. Yeah, there we go. Now, one big point. I want to try to keep this chisel as straight up and down as I can. That's why I have it somewhat perpendicular to me. What I don't want is if I lean this in, we very likely could come out of the side of the leather. We don't want that. Secondly, we want to get the full width of the tine through the leather. So let's drop that in. Good, okay. I can feel tines somewhat across the bottom. Not yet enough. Let's go. There we are. Now we've got chisel all the way through the leather. As we move along, we'll get used to how much pressure we need with our hammer, okay? Next up, first tine, last hole. We're going to do that to try to keep our stitches as consistent as we can. So first tine, last hole, lay that down in there. Good, we've got it. Okay, now when we come up to a curve or a bend, let's step down to a 2 tine, because what I'm going to do here, first tine, last hole, but I'm just going to hit it enough to mark it. Now I know where that next tine needs to be. Again, the point there, simply keeping our stitches consistent. Yeah, notice how easy the 2 goes in and out. All right, let's do this all the way to our corner, then we'll go around a corner. Now, when we get down to our corner, I can do one more chisel right there. So first tine, last hole. Now, let's mark this. I'm going to bend this around. Good. I know where that needs to land. So let's go with our single tine to make that curve. Good. Let's mark for the next chisel. There we are. I know where my 4 starts. And now, there we go. I'm going to work my way across, back up to this side, right to the inside of that curve. And we've got that. Very nice. We could chisel these separately. Go with our 6, make it a lot easier, but we don't have to line anything up by doing it this way. All right. Let's go drop in a stitch line. Like I said, we don't have to spend big money on a sewing machine to sew leather to put in a pretty stitch. But there are a couple of things we need. First off, our sewing pony. Now, this is made to sit on, but I'd like to clamp it to a table because I like to sew standing up. I have more reach, better vision, more upper body strength. But the point there is we can clamp this anywhere on our table. Let's be comfortable while we hand sew. Now, on our needle and thread, let's go with our John James number 18. It's my favorite sized hand sewing needle. Hand sewing, no sharp point. That's a big help to us. But also, on our thread, let's go with a 0.8 millimeter. This is the Ritza. We've got this in some beautiful colors. Say we've got a little turquoise in our saddle, chaps. We can drop in turquoise here. That'd be a nice tie-in. But let's go with our bright white for a couple of reasons. First off, we can see what we're doing for the video. But secondly, in my opinion, that's going to give our sleeve a little bit of a Western feel. And we've got a white number plate in there. That should look good. Now we're going to do a simple saddler stitch. So what I would like, we're going to put a needle on each end of our thread, and on my thread, I want 4 times our length. So that's 4 times this length. All right, well, let's make this a little bit easier. How about let's just flip this over here. Now we'll just sew from the center around on both sides. We're actually dealing with less thread. So let's just pick one hole right in the middle. I'm going to take one needle, and I'm going to come through that. Okay, let's even that out. Good, yeah, even out our distance there. So on our next hole, and we can sew away or towards us, doesn't matter, same thing. Let's go into our next hole. I'm going to take that needle halfway through the hole. I'm going to take the other needle, going to come in from the back side, same hole, and let's push that through. Now let's bring them about halfway through. What I'm going to do is make an X. I'm actually holding my thread, and I'm going to pull down on the eye. There's our X. Let's push that thread and not the needle all the way through. Let's move our hands from the eye to the tip, and let's pull that through. Good, we've got a good stitch. Now tension-wise, I just want to add enough tension to where I can see that little loop sink just a little bit down into the top grain. So let's do a second. Good, maybe 2 more. Good, we've got 4 clean, pretty stitches in no time at all. So now I'm just going to sew from here right up to this last hole. And we're down to the end. So I timed this just to see what would happen. Now I started my timer somewhere about the 6th or 7th stitch, but that was less than 4 minutes to sew this, maybe 5 overall. So hand sewing, not necessarily as tedious as we may think. So now when we get down to this last hole, let's come through both needles just like we have thus far, but let's don't add tension to this just yet. Okay, we've got that. Now, on the front, with the front needle, I'm going to open this up, I'm going to go back 1 hole, and I'm just going to come through this front ply. There we go. And on the back, same thing. Back 1 hole, and just through that back ply. Now, we can take our needles off at this point if we want to. Let's take our 2 pieces, and I want to add tension one at a time. So I'm going to add tension there and then on that side. Okay, now we're just going to tie a little square knot right down in there, and it will tuck in nicely. So right over left, circle around. Let's draw that down in there. Now left over right, circle around, same thing. Good, we've got a good secure knot. Now, with our knife, I rarely use this part of my blade. So I'm going to just sit that down in there, and I'm just going to pull, let's see if we can see that. There we go. I'm going to pull the thread across the blade so I don't cut into my project. All right, good. So, on this side, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to start in this hole. That's our last stitch coming through that same hole. Let's pull that through, and now we're just going to sew towards us. Same technique, same saddle stitch. And there we are. Actually, about 10 minutes sewing time. And that looks pretty good. Very nice. Okay, let's drop in an oblong and some strapping, and we're done here. To add strapping or lacing, all we really have to do is punch 2 holes, tie a knot in a piece of lace, and we're there. But we've done a good job thus far. Let's keep that going. So let's add a piece of strap. Now, the downside to this, I would prefer a leather a little bit softer, a little more supple. This is a little bit thick, a little too much body. But we're going to counteract that by tapering our cut. So where we tie our knot's only a 1/2 inch wide. It's easier than it sounds. But secondly, with that strap, we could bring it through our oblong and just put in a small rivet. That would look fine. How about a bleed knot? Yeah, let's make this look good. So let's start right here. So for our 2 pieces of strap, I'm going to go about 36 inches, give or take. So on my ruler here, my straight edge, I've got 36. With my marking pen, I'm just going to put a small mark there. Now, with our square or our straight edge, in fact, there's our square. That's one of the most useful tools in my shop. But right here, I'm going to come in 3/4 of an inch, the width of one end of our strap, and then I'm going to come in 1/2 inch, okay? On this other end, let's come in, first off, 1/2 inch, and then 3/4 inch. Good. All right, and again, sharp blade, new blade every time. Let's cut this first piece. Good, we've got that. That actually tapers nicely. Now let's cut this side. Okay, we've got our 2 pieces. Now, for our bleed knot, the wider end is going to go through our oblongs on our main body. So what I'm going to do here, flip this around. I've got a square. I'm going to put 2 slits in this. Now, we don't have a digital pick, pretty easy to do. So first off, I'm going to come in 1 inch, right down the middle. I'm going to cut a slit about 1 inch long. Good, okay. Now, from the end of that slit, let's come down 2.5, and let's cut another slit right about 1 inch long. Let's do that on the other piece. And 1 inch there, give or take, 1/4 inch in or out, not going to make any difference. And our last step here, let's take our main body and our pattern. Let's mark for our oblongs. We've got that. Let's go put this together. Let's start with our oblong punch. Now, if you're not familiar with this punch, it's the punch that is most commonly used to punch an oblong hole so that we can set a buckle. But we can also punch holes that straps can slide through with this. We're going to go with a 3/4 inch, same on our strap, 3/4 inch wide. Now, if you don't have the tool, there's no replacement for this. It makes it so easy. But what you can do is punch 2 small holes with a revolving punch and just cut between those. But let's punch these, both ends. Okay, we've got those. Now over to our strapping. Again, not absolutely necessary here, but let's find our wider ends with our slits. There we are. Okay, now we're going to use a round end punch. That's a nice punch for a strap, something that's not going to go through a buckle. Now, it's a good tool to have, but this strap will actually come in behind the outside strap. But we do have one option. We could always punch this, or we could simply clip this with a knife. But that does add a nice touch, okay? On our strapping, let's find our wider end. There's one of our slits, and there's one of our slits. So on our main body, doesn't matter which side, let's come in from the front. There we go. Now, we've got the slit right there. A little bit hard for the camera to see, I'm sure. But all I'm going to do is bring that slit right up to this line, right to the bottom of the body. So now, let's take this back piece. We're going to come through that slit. And again, this leather, a little bit thick to do this, but with a little use, this is going to soften up nicely. So we pull that through that slit. Let's do our best. Try to get that evened out. Good. Now, we've got our slit at the end. Let's take this piece and come through there. And let's bend that back over. That's a little bit of a mess, but no, let's just work with it. Try to get that evened out a little bit. Now, like I said, it's a little bit thick, but again, with some use, that's going to soften nicely, okay? Over to a revolving punch. In my opinion, the quality versus cost on this, one of the best out there. We've got replaceable tubes. It's a good, solid revolving punch. I'm going to come up to about the third tube. Let's get that even side to side. Good. Now I can see where the end of that back strap is. Let's just punch a hole. Okay? Now, double cap rivets. It's the only rivet I use, and I love these. We've got these in 6 different finishes. Let's go with the antique brass. Now, 3 sizes. I'm going to go with the smallest. That's 1/4 of an inch. Let's bring that through. Let's put a cap on that. And with our setter, this is from our 4-piece setter set, we can set all of our snaps and our rivets. Let's make sure we've got the concaved end down. And we've got that. Very nice. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And there we go. And again, we can work those knots, a little bit thick leather, but we can work those, make those a little more consistent. Let's put a number board in this. I think we've got a good looking project here. Clean, durable, and absolutely useful. How about the plate? Let's see if this fits in. And there we are. Fits right in there, looks good with that white stitch line. Now, 2 points. Well, first off, because of this thicker leather, maybe we could bring that down to 3/8 of an inch for a taper. That's going to be a pretty big knot when we tie it, but again, that's going to soften up. And the next point, not really worth bringing up, but it is a funny point because we used our chisel to mark our holes as we went around that corner to make sure we get a consistent length on our stitch line. Right there, we've got 3 stitches, longer than all the rest. Now, is anybody but us going to notice that? Absolutely not. Well, does that help how we feel about it? Absolutely not. We've got a good-looking, well-made, durable leathercraft project that we can absolutely utilize. That's the best leathercraft project. Now, big point for those of us that are new. We've now cut leather. We've used an oblong, a round corner. We've done hand sewing, and we've set a rivet. Those are the basic elements of most any leathercraft project. So take what you learn here and make something beautiful. Good luck with your projects.